So Darrin, I've heard you mention a couple of times, you've talked about fathers. And I've talked with the chairman of the Texas Republican Party, Alan West, and he and many other people have saying the number one issue in our, he says the black community, but I would say perhaps in America, is fatherlessness, father absence from the home. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, you know, and it's a father's job to tell a child who he is, you know, and kind of give that guidance and raise him up in the right way. And, you know, a lot of our fathers in the hood have been killed, have gone to prison. A lot of people in the hood become fathers at like 15 or 16. And so you think about a child that's born into a bad situation already. I've seen babies come in the world addicted to drugs, or come into an abusive household, or come into a neglectful household, or come into a home where it's just so much poverty and struggle and worry and strife that that's all that kid knows. Just like any other baby pick up emotions, like or pick up like what food they like to eat or how to walk. They look at their parents, they absorb things. Well, they also absorb struggle, they absorb worry, they absorb depression. They know all of those feelings. And if you don't have a father there, there's always more likely not that pressure is going to be in that house on that single mom. So the mom can't be a father. And so this is a huge issue because we're not being taught. We're not being taught in the homes. We're not being taught how to be fathers. And so we're growing up at 16 and 17 just having sex and becoming fathers, teaching the same patterns over and over again. And it's either, you know, a lot of times you end up shot, you end up dead, you end up in jail, you end up just being mediocre going through life. You don't really end up successful because you never really truly learn how to be a man. And that's a huge problem. And a lot of times, we think about being a man as growing up and having to provide for the house. So, you know, at 14 and 15, when you see mom struggling, you want to go get a job or you want to go make money, and you look up to the drug dealers and all that kind of stuff and end up going to prison, and just the cycle continues. So, you know, there's no real providers, and it's struggle, it's strife, it's heartache, it's pain, it's the hood. You know?
So one of the things that people don't really talk about a whole lot is back in the early 1960s, the intact family rate among the black families was about 77%. Lyndon Baines Johnson came along and had this great idea, this great society idea, and basically destroyed the intact family. He gave incentives for people to actually not be together. So as today, right now, if you look at black families, only about 24% of the children are actually born to intact families with both the mother and the father there together.
Right.
And but people don't say this was a democratic policy that got put into place.
Right.
And what I hear you saying, if I hear you correctly, it's almost as if the Democratic Party has been exploiting your pain, maybe causing it and then exploiting it to try to get power for themselves. Is that an accurate assessment?
That's very accurate. I've gone into homes where parents with CPS, and I would find them jobs, and they would say, well, is it going to interfere with my welfare? I'm like, well, yeah. And they say, well, I don't want to take the job. And I'm like, well, that's the point of welfare. It's not for you to stay on it, it's so that you can get off of it. And so when they're constantly pushing it, they'll always have a slave. They'll always have somebody depending on them. Depend on us to feed you. Right. Depend on us to give you your house. Depend on us to take care of you. As long as you don't have a man in the house. As long as you don't have a father there, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. You know, and it gets them dependent upon that system, thereby lulling them to sleep, and they'll always be able to get a vote if they go to vote.
So it almost seems to me, and excuse me for phrasing it in this manner, it's a more sophisticated, enlightened form of slavery.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, and it's very effective too, because if all you do is watch TV and watch different shows that promote the same thing, like the different news channels and things, you're going to believe what you see. A lot of times, and we don't even really. A lot of us do politics, but a lot of us don't. Right. Because we've been pressured and very, you know, there's one side that we see on the news about people that do crimes. We'll see all the killings in Chicago. We'll see all the killings that's going on TV, and just the shootings and the babies getting killed. And we'll look at that and say, God, how can them kids do that? How can they do that? And, you know, I lived in the house with that family. I grew up around that. They still hurt. There's a whole other world that you have to know what it's like to go home with them. You have to know what it's like for them to rob a bank, then come home home and be scared and
Yeah.
and the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And so we so worried about that kind of stuff and how to survive that we don't really care about the news because we just don't trust them.
Right.
And so if you just pump it on TV, just show what you want us to know, that's all we're going to go by.
And it's kind of a brainwashing in a sense.
It's kind of a brainwashing. You have to go and do research. You have to go and learn. You have to go and dig for yourself in order to come out of that fog. And you have to have the Word of God. You know, because if you don't, you won't be able to see clearly because you'll be doing stuff out of a wounded soul. All
Right.
that anger and rage and stuff, you have to learn different emotions like love, peace, and joy, and kindness, and started seeing clearly through that stuff.
So I've wanted to ask as well, and let me go ahead and ask you, a lot of the rage that you see right now, is it a displaced rage because of the circumstances that have now been taking place within the family? So for example, I would say, are they angry because I don't have my dad? Whereas, you know, or you're in a family and, you know, I think if I understood you correctly, you had several different brothers, but they may not have been from the same father, is that
Right,
correct?
right.
So, I mean, I don't know how that dynamic plays out, how you felt on the inside and everything.
Yeah.
But I look at a lot of things and I say that, you know, our families have been being destroyed, often by government policies. We've had 50 years of family destruction.
Yeah.
Why are we shocked to see destruction taking place in society?
Right, right. It's been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.